Am I dead?
No.
This isn't like hell or something?
No.
Then why can't I leave?
Well, you did leave just now, but you came back.
I did not.
You did.
I would really like to meet the person who decided, you know what movies need? More blatant explanations. Like the audience should not be allowed to figure out anything for themselves. And then I'd like to meet the group of people who didn't know how to say no to that person, because honestly, they're the real villains here. Recently, movies don't just tell stories, they walk you through them. Slowly, carefully, reassuring you at every point like they're afraid you might wander off. And what's interesting is that while movies are doing that, anime is doing the exact opposite. And no, I'm not saying anime is perfect, but it is doing something movies seem to have completely forgotten how to do. Anime commits, not just to the plot, but to the tone, themes, and consequences. When an anime decides what kind of story it's telling, it doesn't keep checking in. It doesn't stop mid-scene to confirm that you're still following along, or rewind emotional moments just in case you missed them. It just goes. And that commitment matters because a story actually believing in itself is one of the biggest reasons the audience believes in it too. You don't feel like you're being sold something, you feel like you're being invited into something. Compare that to a lot of recent movies where the tension builds and then immediately gets explained. Someone says out loud exactly what the audience already understands, not because it makes the scene better, but because the movie doesn't trust that silence will do the job. Anime doesn't do that. When it explains something, it tends to earn it. It explains rules when they matter. It recaps when there's been time apart, and it trusts that if you're still watching, you're probably paying attention, which is weirdly becoming uncommon. So yes, anime does recap, but it doesn't panic about it. If something important happened 40 episodes ago, you usually get a visual callback, or a brief flashback, or even just a line that reminds you of it, and then it moves on. It's not restating the entire emotional weight of what already happened. It's just saying, hey, this still matters. And the audience fills in the rest and the story moves on. Compare that to recent movies where exposition feels like a fear response. Like the writer thinks the reason people aren't connecting isn't weak character work or inconsistent tone. It's that we didn't understand the movie. So the solution becomes to explain it again, and then slower, and then explaining a scene while it's still happening. At some point, the movie stops trusting the story and starts trying to manage the audience. Anime characters are allowed to be consistent, which sounds obvious but apparently isn't anymore. If a character is smart, they stay smart. If they're emotionally reserved, they don't suddenly deliver a perfectly articulated therapeutic monologue because the plot needs it.
In case you haven't noticed, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. I don't fit in. And I don't want to fit in. Have you ever seen me without this stupid hat on? That's weird.
What the f are you talking about, man?
They don't flip personalities just to make a scene work. And if you've watched a bunch of movies recently, you've probably already thought of at least 2 characters that do exactly that. Let me know who you thought of in the comments because we've all noticed it. You get the character who's been quiet, guarded, and closed off for an entire movie suddenly explain their deepest trauma clearly for the benefit of the audience. Or the smart character who solved impossible problems earlier in the movie, connecting dots no one else could see, and then they just suddenly can't figure out something they already understood. Not because it makes sense, but because the plot needs help getting from A to B. Movies and shows do this constantly now. They turn characters into plot devices. They forget what the character already knows. They say things they'd never say, all to get the audience to the point where the audience already got to by themselves. And every time that happens, the story loses a little trust. There's this idea floating around now, mostly coming from streamers and platforms, that audiences are only half watching, which means stories have to be repeated over and over and over again. I don't know who introduced this idea, but I just imagine someone in a meeting going, well, I wasn't paying attention, so clearly no one else would either, and everyone else just nodding along. And to be fair, this pressure isn't new. The Matrix was notoriously hard to pitch because apparently it was too confusing. So a lot of studios passed on it. Actors passed on it. Nicolas Cage, Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, Will Smith passed on it to do a movie no one remembers. So I'm not blaming writers for being cautious, but here's the difference. The budgets are bigger, which means more backers, which means more people who want input. And when enough people are afraid of confusion, the safest option becomes over-explanation. Anime generally doesn't come from that mindset. It doesn't assume it's background noise. It assumes you chose to be there, which feels bold now. Like if this story is not your thing, that's fine. But if you're in, you're in. Anime unapologetically immerses you in the world. It doesn't stop to explain the vibe. It doesn't check if you're comfortable. Sometimes the point is for you not to be. It lets silence sit. Moments linger. It trusts that the payoff feels better when it's earned. You're not constantly being told what something means. You're allowed to feel it first, which is something movies used to be incredible at. But now, a lot of them are afraid that if you don't explain it fast enough, you'll lose interest. And that fear kills immersion. And this isn't just a live action problem. Some animated movies and shows fall into the exact same trap. The same exposition dumps, fear of silence, and need to explain everything out loud. Which really proves something important. The issue isn't the medium, it's the mindset. Animation can do this well. Anime proves that. But when studios bring the same habits into animation, it breaks just as hard. One of the most interesting things lately is watching the book talk crowd slowly drift into anime. With the long stories, big emotional payoffs, hundreds of episodes, which tells you something important. People aren't scared of commitment, they're scared of wasting it. They don't mind paying attention as long as the story respects it. Anime rewards attention, and audiences notice that. Movies don't need to explain less, they just need to explain better. Exposition is not the enemy. Fear is. Fear of confusion, of silence, or just of trusting the audience. Because when stories stop being afraid, they start feeling like experiences again. So if you made it to the end of this video, thanks. And congratulations. You officially have a longer attention span than most studio executives think. So subscribe before I start explaining this entire video back to you.